Welcome to the Thrive Co podcast, exploring the inner side of success. I am your host, Nikki, and each week we will explore the mindset shifts, personal growth, and everyday tools that will help you to navigate ambition, manage stress, and build a life that actually feels good on the inside. Through solo episodes and honest guest conversations, we look at what it really takes to grow, change, and thrive in the modern world. Hello and welcome to the Thrive Co podcast. I hope you are all well. I hope you have all had a fantastic week. So I'm going to let you into a little bit of a secret. I've just recorded an entire podcast episode. It was just over 28 minutes long. And then I'll listen back to make sure the sound is okay, but I don't generally listen to the whole thing back until I have uploaded it ready to schedule and send out. But I just felt like I'd really waffled on it. And normally I'm a big believer in I'll say what I've got to say on a topic and the right people, it will land with the right people and it will register and resonate with the right people. But actually there was something more than that. It wasn't just me doubting what I'd said in terms of the content. I didn't doubt the content of it. It was the fact that the structure was so, I guess, just waffly and very convoluted compared to actually what I wanted to put out this week, which is a very simple concept. And it just felt like there was too many things going on at once. I'd gone through too many strategies and ways of doing things. I just thought, no, do you know what? Let's strip it all back. Let's make it about what I wanted to make it about. If that makes it a lot shorter, then so be it. And it will be exactly how I wanted it to be, rather than going into 2 or 3 different topics and things that actually we don't need to go through at this stage for what I wanted to cover today. Now, I am going to caveat this with saying with the previous podcast, I did tend to record weekly. I did tend to give an update that nobody asked for about my own life at the beginning, which obviously I will still continue to do. However, I'm probably going to batch record a little bit more, especially at the moment, just because, well, first of all, life is busy, work is busy, but also what I'm tending to find is because I'm studying and I'm doing a lot of learning at the moment, I'm also doing coaching workshops and there's a lot of ideas being bounced around between really inspirational and amazing groups of people. There's quite often days in the week when I hadn't planned on recording where a topic or a conversation will happen or some learning will be shared. And it's really interesting. And if I don't then record in that moment, the momentum and the way that I wanted to phrase things isn't quite the same when I come back to read my notes and I'm trying to make sense of it all. So I think what I'm going to do is try and just do things as they come to me, as the inspiration comes. And that may mean that some weeks you're getting an update on all of the shit that's happening in my life. And it may mean that some weeks, because I've done 2 or 3 records and they go out over 2 or 3 weeks, that you're just getting the juicy content, which I'm sure that you're all more than happy with. Because like I say, nobody asked for these life updates. I'm just an oversharer. So what I wanted to talk about today is the absolute foundation and first step in anything self-development. Well, in anything, to be honest, doing a bit of an audit and really observing and noticing what's going on before going in there like a bull in a china shop is really important. Now, this isn't something that comes naturally to me. I am by nature quite I wouldn't say an impulsive person, but definitely when I want something, I want it and I will move hell and high water to make it happen. And sometimes that means that then I'll reflect back and think there was actually a better way to do that, or I'd missed something. And it doesn't necessarily just relate to self-development or making changes with myself. This could be like DIY and projects that we embark upon in the house. It could be party planning, event planning. There's so many occasions where I've gone in all guns blazing and just done the most obvious and important things, and actually on reflection, I've missed a step, or I've missed something that in hindsight could have made it even better. And what I'm learning in the coaching course that I'm doing is that actually patience and reflection and observation are sometimes one of the most important things that you can do before fixing anything, before even thinking about what it is that you want to fix. Because there's no point going into, I don't know, a house that you want to renovate, for instance, and just attacking a room without actually looking at, well, what are the steps that I'm going to need to take to make this work, and are there things that are going to happen in the future that might mean that I need to start in a different place, or actually is this even something that needs fixing in the first place? So what we've been learning is the first step to any self-development journey, any bettering of yourself or personal growth, is to observe and understand your own patterns of behavior, your own habits, and really get to grips with what it is that is happening that is maybe negative or not serving you, whether that is a negative habit, whether it is self-talk. And actually, quite a lot of the time, certainly for me, I don't know or notice some of the things that are going on with my own patterns because they're that ingrained. They are that, what's the word, like strong and built into your everyday life that actually you just do them on autopilot. And I'll give you an example of this. So I clean our house. I don't have a cleaner. I really enjoy cleaning. I'm clearly tapped in the head, I know. But for me, cleaning is quite a practice of mindfulness. I'll put on a podcast whilst I'm cleaning, and it's like that time that I'm not in front of a screen that I can really focus on stuff. I'll tend to have quite good ideas and think of things when I'm cleaning. But I also get into this I don't really know how I'd explain it, zone and flow when I'm cleaning or decluttering. Probably less so decluttering, but definitely when I'm cleaning the house, because I've got a process. I know what I want to do in what order. And my husband pointed out to me a few weeks ago that when I'm cleaning, I'm actually a bit of an arse. I can actually be a bit of a bitch, a bit of a nightmare, because everything has to be done there and then. So if he's left something out, or there's things on his desk, or there's clothing that needs to go away, if I'm in cleaning mode, I'm like, what are you doing with this? Where's this going? Where does this live? Put this away. And he said I can be quite kind of snappy and off with him. Now, I'd never noticed this before. I had not noticed that this was a pattern of behaviour for me, because it's just something that I do. Whereas he'd actually pointed out to me that it's actually not that nice being on the receiving end of that. And it can feel quite, he can feel quite attacked. Something that maybe hasn't bothered me for a few days will suddenly become this thing that has to be done there and then. And so that for me is a pattern of behaviour that, had he have not pointed that out, I'd have just continued to do. And it wasn't negatively impacting me, but it was negatively impacting him. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3-month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. And then the other thing that I've really noticed that I do, and the reason that I've noticed it is because actually part of my early stage and early modules in my coaching course, you do all of the practices on yourself first. You do all of the reflection and all of the what's the word, kind of like the introspection, and then you apply the tools to your own life before you go out and help others and coach others. So we had to spend a week looking at our patterns and behaviours. And one of the things this year, especially the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, that I'd really noticed is I didn't feel like I had a lot of time in my evening. So I'd finish work, I would go down and have dinner with my husband, he does the cooking. I'd then come back up to my desk and do a little bit of like emails, replying to messages, stuff like that. And then it felt like the evening was done and gone. And I used to do like yoga in the evenings. I used to have time to do a little bit of like cleaning up and tidying up, or there was just things that I felt like I wasn't doing. And part of that, I felt like maybe it was because it was like the dark winter months and you feel like the nights are longer and the days are shorter. But also I was like, I feel like time is just getting away from me. And when I first started my business, like 3 years ago now, I would be working till like 9, half 9 at night, like all the way through. I'd have dinner and go back to work and just be working. And I haven't really been doing that as much. So there was definitely something at play there. And it was only by taking a step back and watching my behaviour for the week that they asked us to, that I realised that I was finishing dinner. I was going into the living room. We have the living room shut to the dog all day because his toys are in there and he just gets leery. So we open it up after dinner. And then he has an hour of like playing and just messing around with whatever he wants to. And I was in that time just slumping on the sofa and scrolling on my phone, just doom scrolling. I would say that I was like resting and, you know, switching off. And actually there's a whole other episode in why scrolling on your phone isn't switching off. And I'm currently doing a 30-day phone, not kind of detox. It's basically helping us to use our phone in a different way, but I'll talk about that another time. It's been incredible so far. But I realised I was actually just scrolling on my phone. And so that was an hour gone. Then I'd go back upstairs, do my emails, do my messages, catch up on whatever admin. And then I'd sit at my desk and scroll again. So for a good hour and a half, 2 hours each night, I was getting sucked into social media, scrolling, watching reels, basically having my time, energy and resources sucked by the tech billionaires that create these platforms to keep you on them. And I had no idea that that was happening. I knew I was using my phone because my screen time wasn't great, but I wasn't aware that that was happening. It was also happening in the morning. So I was doing my gratitude list on my phone. I was checking in with my accountability team. There's 3 of us that check in each morning because we work on our own and do like a little to-do list. And then we check in the evening and update how we've got on and keep each other accountable. So I was doing those things. And then whilst my LED mask was working on my skin, I was scrolling, and probably for 20, 30 minutes then I'd be in a scroll hole. So by observing these patterns of behaviour, I was able to see that it was happening and not change it at that moment. That week wasn't about changing it, but it was about just being more conscious. I mean, naturally, when you notice something negative, there is a human inclination to try and change it. But actually putting into place the change in the habit loop is something that we then came on to. And actually that was what the podcast that I said that I recorded ended up talking about. So not only was I talking about observing patterns and observing behaviours, but I then went on to talk about changing them and looking at cues and looking at rewards. And actually, I'm going to talk about that in another episode, because this isn't about changing anything. This isn't about creating new habits. It's about just observing your own behavior. And this isn't just habits. We're not talking just about doom scrolling or eating crap or smoking. We're talking about things like catching yourself gossiping about other people. Have you got a pattern of negative self-talk? The minute that something doesn't go the way that you wanted or you get disappointed, do you spiral? Does your mindset go into, well, that was never going to happen for me, I can't do this, I'm a piece of shit, I should just give up? Noticing and catching yourself. And what you'll tend to find happens, or what happened for me, was when I was observing my own patterns, it also made me super hyper aware of other people's patterns as well. Now, this isn't about being self-critical. It's not about, blaming yourself or beating yourself up. And it's certainly not about pulling other people up on their patterns. If somebody reaches out to you for advice or for an opinion, then you can give that. But I really wouldn't advise going in and telling your mum or your best friend or your partner that they've got a negative habit, because that might not be something that they're interested in hearing. But you will notice them. I certainly did. And this really isn't, as I say, it's not about being self-critical. It's not about blaming yourself or creating a perpetuating loop of self-hatred. It's just about gathering information. It's about gathering data. It's about having, it's about recognizing previously unrecognized patterns and understanding when they're happening. It's about taking responsibility so that you can then make a different choice when it comes to changing those patterns. And often what you'll find is the patterns and the habits are self-serving in some way. They're some sort of coping mechanism, or they're giving you something. So it could be that you are perpetually engaging in messaging on dating apps with toxic men that validate you and tell you how gorgeous you are, but actually in reality you know that they are fuckboys or players. It could be that you are engaging in comfort eating, that you're engaging in eating crap every day after work because in reality you hate your job, you're really struggling, and it gives you some sort of dopamine release. It could be that you're scrolling, doom scrolling like I was, and actually it's trying to give you relaxation and that dopamine hit that maybe you haven't had all day because you're working in a really intense environment, or it's very, very full on. But either way, you need to be able to recognize and understand your patterns before you can do anything about them, before you can change them, before you can try and break them or replace them. And actually, this is where a coach can really come in. And this is not a sales pitch. It's not me saying, work with me. I am simply saying that there are things that I have uncovered about my patterns and my behaviours and my self-talk that I would not have been able to uncover without some seriously deep self-reflection on my own. And sometimes that seriously deep self-reflection on your own doesn't even uncover the same patterns and behaviours that you can with a coach, because they're coming at it completely objectively. Whereas you will have all this subjective self-talk of, yeah, but I do that because, and all of these kind of like reasoning with yourself. Whereas a coach doesn't necessarily know you, well, certainly won't know you anywhere near as well as you know yourself. They will just see exactly what is in front of them. And the other thing that you can do is you can actively go out and ask for feedback from those closest to you. Now, I would probably only advise doing this with really trusted people in your life. So maybe your partner, as long as they haven't got a habit of like bringing you down, or close friends, family members. If you're a founder or a business owner or a manager at work, maybe even your employees. I know 360 feedback is something that is becoming more and more common in the workplace, because let's be honest, if someone's reporting into you, you should be prepared for constructive feedback and criticism of how you behave. And maybe ask them for things that they've recognised or that have come up. So for instance, like the piece of feedback that I got from my husband when I was doing the cleaning, there are things that you won't have even thought about. There are areas that you may not have even been aware were an issue or a challenge, or even something that somebody had noticed, that will come up when you ask different groups of people. And like I say, just be conscious of who you do this with. You know, if it's someone that you are prone to arguing with, or you don't value their feedback. I have valued friends in my life whose feedback I would take any day of the week. There's also then people in my life who maybe can be a little bit judgmental because of their own life experience and the filter that they view life through. And we have very different value set. And I probably wouldn't ask them for the direct feedback. And I also probably wouldn't advise going out to like lots and lots of people, because you just want maybe one or two pieces of feedback and maybe unrecognized patterns that you can start to recognize and think about. And then you can come on to working on them later down the line. But for now, it's just about catching yourself. It's about recognizing. It's about just bringing awareness to things that you maybe do on autopilot, or things that you are so ingrained in your life that you don't even notice them. And that really is the first pillar that underpins any sort of self-development work, any sort of personal growth work. You can't change something until you're aware of it, and you can't always become aware of it on your own. So yeah, I'd really advise trying that. It's been really, really powerful for me. I have definitely come out of the end of that week with a few things that I feel I need to break habits of, or work on, or change. And like I say, in another episode, I will definitely be able to talk more around, you know, the habit rewards that you're seeking, and what the cue is, and how we can create new habits. There is probably a previous episode on that as well. And that was something else that I kind of wanted to say. Like, there will be content that I talk about in these new podcast episodes that will probably overlap with or be similar to previous episodes of the previous podcast. But what I'm bringing now is a different lens, more life experience, more learned experience, more scientific knowledge. I am obviously studying some of these subjects now, so it's a different, more evolved experience and set of perspectives. So some of it will probably cross over, but there will also be more meat to the bones. So this is something that we have talked about previously in terms of the habit creation, but actually now understanding the neuroscience behind it, I can really bring a structure and a way of doing things that hopefully will enable it to stick and enable it to be a lot more successful for you. So I hope that makes sense. If you are considering doing this, I would definitely limit it to a week initially, like an average week. If you're going off on holiday, or, I mean, you can definitely do it in a different environment, but I would say when you're having like a normal working week and a pretty average weekend, it's probably the best time to do it, because what I tend to find is my self-talk is probably a lot more positive when I'm in a more positive environment, you know, when I'm on holiday, got less stresses, less responsibilities. So try and build it in when you're actually going to be doing a regular week and around kind of the normal people that you would be around, and just observe, just catch yourself if you're doing things that you know are maybe not that healthy, or you're talking to yourself in a way that isn't so good, or there's habits that you know are, maybe not so good for you. And again, as always, if you've got feedback, if you've got thoughts on this, if you want to share your learnings with me, then please do so. There is a new email address, which is nikki@thriveco.uk. And the Instagram handle for the new podcast Instagram is Nikki_thrive_co. So have a great week all, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you are following the podcast, and don't forget to share episodes with a friend who may need it.